Ladies and gentlemen, there is a presence that walks with you every moment of your life. It does not leave when the lights go out, nor does it vanish in times of struggle. It is with you in the silence between your thoughts, in the stillness before action, and in the echo after your words. This presence is you yourself. Before you meet others in the world, you meet yourself. And when the world withdraws, when conversations end and the crowd disperses, you return to yourself once again. This is the relationship that remains unchanged by location, time, or circumstance. Yet how often do we forget this truth? How often do we place all our energy into maintaining relationships outside of us, while neglecting the one within? We strive to be seen, to be accepted, to be loved by others, but we overlook the necessity of seeing, accepting, and loving our own being first. You could surround yourself with 1,000 people, yet if the connection to yourself is broken, there will be a sense of hollowness that not even the warmest presence can fill. This companionship is not made of words or gestures. It is deeper than language, older than memory. It is the way you breathe through your pain, the way you speak to yourself when no one else can hear, the way you carry your own weight with quiet dignity when there is no applause, no recognition, no reward. The nature of this relationship shapes everything else in your life: how you view the world, how you treat others, how you respond to challenges. To recognize yourself as your own companion is to wake up to an inner stillness. It means no longer fearing solitude, but embracing it as a mirror. It is in this silence that you begin to notice the patterns of your thoughts, the rhythm of your breath, and the weight of your presence. With this awareness, you no longer rush to escape yourself through distraction or validation. Instead, you become curious. You begin to listen, not to judge, but to understand. There is no need to become someone else. You are not a project to be fixed, but a presence to be honored. You are already whole, not because you are perfect, but because you exist in this moment with the ability to choose, again and again, to return to yourself. Every time you feel lost, overwhelmed, or disconnected, know that the path back is always here, within. The world will continue to change, people will come and go, circumstances will rise and fall, but this relationship, the one with yourself, will remain. Whether you nurture it or neglect it is your decision. The more you nurture it, the more you discover a source of stability that no storm can move. A still center within you that listens, forgives, and gently guides you home. This is not philosophy. This is practice, daily, moment by moment. It is in every breath, every pause, every choice to meet yourself with honesty and grace. The journey begins not out there, but in here, always in here. Most people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to another. In moments of failure or uncertainty, the words that arise from within are often sharp, unforgiving, and cold. This inner voice, shaped by past wounds, societal pressure, and unrealistic expectations, becomes a source of suffering not because life is always hard, but because we make it harder by how we treat ourselves. There is great misunderstanding in believing that harshness leads to strength. In truth, strength grows from compassion, and compassion begins with the way you relate to yourself. Look closely. When you fall short, what do you say to yourself? When you feel tired, do you grant yourself rest or guilt? When something doesn't go your way, do you meet the moment with patience, or do you turn against your own heart? The habit of self-judgment is so deeply ingrained that many don't even notice it anymore. It becomes the background noise of the mind, a constant hum of not being enough, not doing enough, not moving fast enough. But there is another way. Consider how a gardener tends to a plant. If it begins to wilt, they don't shout at it or blame it. They adjust the light, offer more water, care for the soil. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. You are no different. When your spirit is tired, your motivation low, your thoughts scattered, what you need is not punishment, but understanding. A kind word to yourself in those moments is not indulgent, it is healing. It is a sign that you have learned to stand beside yourself rather than against yourself. Some believe that being kind to oneself is a form of weakness, that it leads to complacency. But nothing could be further from the truth. Compassion does not remove responsibility, it transforms it. When you are gentle with yourself, you don't avoid growth. You create the conditions in which growth becomes possible. A flower does not bloom through force. It opens in the presence of warmth. Self-compassion is not just about soothing pain. It is about being honest with yourself while still holding your heart with care. It means recognizing where you've gone wrong, but not defining yourself by those moments. It means having the courage to sit with your imperfections and still choose to love the person you are becoming. This kind of love is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is quiet, steady, and unwavering. True transformation begins when you change the tone of your inner voice. Speak to yourself with the same kindness you would offer to a friend in pain. When the mind attacks, respond with patience. When the body feels heavy, meet it with gratitude. When your progress feels slow, remind yourself that even the moon waxes and wanes. What you practice inwardly, you reflect outwardly. And when you learn to be kind to yourself, that kindness ripples into every corner of your life quietly, but powerfully. In a world constantly reaching for noise, the ability to sit in stillness has become a forgotten art. Silence makes many people uncomfortable, not because it is empty, but because within silence we are finally able to hear what we've been avoiding. In the stillness, the distractions fall away. There is no screen to scroll, no voice to respond to, no task to complete. There is just you, and what arises in the absence of noise, and that is why it is so powerful. When you allow yourself to be truly silent, you begin to see the nature of your own mind. You witness the flow of thoughts, some anxious, some critical, some longing, some random. You begin to notice the rhythm of your breath, the tension in your body, the weight of your posture. Most importantly, you begin to feel again. Not the surface-level emotions shaped by routine, but the deeper, more honest ones that speak from the core of your being. These feelings are not always comfortable, but they are always necessary. There is a reason ancient traditions return to silence as a way to reconnect. Silence is not about the absence of sound, but the presence of awareness. It invites you to slow down, to observe, to reset. It brings you face to face with yourself, not the version shaped by roles and expectations, but the one underneath it all. And it is only by meeting that version that true clarity can arise. When you sit in stillness, the need to prove something dissolves. The urge to compare fades. There is no race to win, no image to uphold. In that space, you begin to return to your essence, not as someone trying to be better, but as someone remembering who they already are. This remembrance is not dramatic. It does not need to be announced. It is subtle, like the first light before dawn, gentle but profound. This inner stillness also sharpens perception. You begin to move through the world with more awareness. Your words become more intentional, your actions more thoughtful. You respond instead of react. You listen not just to reply, but to understand. These shifts may appear small to others, but inside, they feel like a realignment with truth. You are no longer scattered. You are rooted. Yet, stillness must be practiced. It does not arrive by accident. It requires space-time away from noise, even if only for a few minutes a day. A walk without your phone, a breath before speaking, a pause before reacting. These moments build inner strength. They remind you that peace is not something you find outside. It is something you uncover within, once the distractions are gone. Silence does not mean emptiness, it means depth, and in that depth you discover your greatest teacher, your own awareness. When you choose to sit with yourself, fully and honestly, you begin to reclaim a power that cannot be given by anyone else. A quiet power, a steady presence, a return to what is real. There is a deep misunderstanding that has taken root in the minds of many, that our value must be earned. From an early age, we are conditioned to associate our worth with achievement, with praise, with how much we do, how we appear, how we compare. We learn to measure ourselves against expectations, those set by family, society, and even ourselves. And when we fall short of these shifting standards, we begin to question if we are enough. But your worth is not conditional. It was never meant to be. A tree does not question its value because its fruit is late to ripen. A river does not stop flowing because someone thinks it moves too slowly. Their existence is their offering, and so is yours. You are not here to meet external quotas or prove yourself through constant productivity. You are here to live, to breathe, to grow at your own pace. You are worthy not because of what you do, but because of who you are. The moment you begin tying yourself, worth to performance, you create a fragile identity. Not your hopes, you feel proud, but only briefly. The moment you fail, you feel crushed. You begin to ride an emotional wave that is controlled entirely by circumstances outside of you. This cycle is exhausting because no matter how much you accomplish, it is never enough. The mind always finds a new standard, a new reason to withhold acceptance. To break free from this cycle, one must return inward and observe. Ask yourself, when did I decide that I needed to become someone else in order to be valuable? When did I start believing that my flaws made me less human, less lovable? These beliefs are not truths. They are stories. Stories you can choose to release. Because beneath the layers of judgment and comparison, your essence remains untouched, pure, complete, and whole. This does not mean that growth should be avoided. It means that growth becomes more meaningful when it is rooted in self-respect, not self-rejection. You do not fix what is broken. You support what is becoming. You do not need to hustle for worthiness. You are already enough to begin the journey, already enough to take the next step, already enough to sit in stillness and feel peace. Your worth is not a prize at the end of a race. It is the ground you stand on as you run. It is the breath in your lungs before the first step. It is the stillness in your heart after the finish line. You don't have to earn it. You only have to recognize it. The most powerful shift begins when you stop asking, "What do I need to do to be enough?" and start saying, "I am already enough, and from here, I choose to grow." That is not complacency. That is liberation. And it is from that place of freedom that true strength is born. The body, the mind, and the spirit, these are not separate entities to be trained in isolation. They are deeply connected, each influencing the other in ways often unnoticed. When the body is tense, the mind cannot rest. When the mind is scattered, the body grows restless. When the spirit is dim, both body and mind begin to lose direction. This is why true training is never focused only on one aspect. Real growth arises when we begin to align all three, moving with intention, thinking with clarity, and living with presence. Many people chase physical strength as a way to appear powerful, yet they carry a noisy, restless mind. Others read books, fill their thoughts with knowledge, but their bodies are weak and their energy dull. Some meditate and seek spiritual insight, but their actions remain ungrounded and inconsistent. Without balance, discipline becomes fractured. It cannot carry us far because something essential is always being neglected. To train the body is to build a strong foundation. Through movement, breath, and posture, we cultivate awareness of our physical form. This body is not just a tool. It is the vessel through which we experience the world. When we take care of it, we begin to feel more centered, more alive. But strength without flexibility leads to rigidity. And so we must train not just for power, but for freedom. Freedom of movement, freedom of breath, freedom from tension. To train the mind is to sharpen the instrument that perceives reality. A mind left untrained is reactive, easily disturbed, constantly wandering. But a trained mind becomes focused, calm, and alert. It no longer clings to every thought or emotion. It begins to observe with stillness. Through reflection, reading, and mindfulness, the mind becomes a space of clarity instead of confusion. It no longer fights against life, it flows with it. To train the spirit is to nourish the unseen. The spirit speaks not through words, but through feeling. It is the sense of purpose behind action, the quiet strength that remains when everything else is uncertain. The spirit grows in silence, in service, in honesty. It does not seek recognition. It simply deepens with each act of presence, with each moment of truth. When the spirit is aligned, life begins to feel meaningful, even in difficulty. Training all three, body, mind, and spirit, is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole. Each part supports the others. When the body is strong, the mind can focus. When the mind is quiet, the spirit can rise. And when the spirit is clear, every movement, every thought, every word begins to reflect that clarity. This is the kind of discipline that does not break under pressure. It does not need to prove anything to the world, because it is rooted deeply within. Such training is a lifelong path. It requires patience, consistency, and humility. But with each step, you return more fully to yourself, integrated, grounded, awake. And from this inner alignment, life becomes not a struggle, but a practice. A quiet unfolding of strength, peace, and presence. There is a common belief that loving yourself is an act of selfishness, a sign of arrogance or pride. But that belief is born from misunderstanding. Loving yourself is not about placing yourself above others. It is about recognizing that your own well-being is the foundation from which everything else in life flows. Just as a candle must be lit before it can offer light, you must be full within before you can truly offer your energy, your care, and your presence to the world around you. This kind of love is not loud. It is not about indulgence or self-centeredness. It is sacred. When you treat yourself with love, you begin to notice how often you have abandoned your own needs for the sake of others' approval. You begin to realize the number of times you have pushed through exhaustion just to meet external expectations. You start to see how many of your thoughts have been shaped by self-criticism, not self-respect. These realizations are not meant to create guilt, but awareness. Because only through awareness can we begin to choose differently. To love yourself is to respect your time, your energy, your space. It is to listen when your body asks for rest, and to honor your limits without apology. It is to speak kindly to yourself when things go wrong, rather than become your own worst enemy. And it is to celebrate your progress, not only the big achievements, but the quiet persistence, the small victories that often go unnoticed by others. This love is not dependent on perfection. It exists even in your mistakes, your doubts, your moments of fear. In fact, it is in those very moments that it becomes most important.
When you fall short, when you fail, when you feel broken, that is when you must choose to stand beside yourself, rather than abandon yourself. The world may not always be kind. Situations may challenge your spirit. But if you have cultivated love within, you always have a place to return to. A refuge, a home. And from this home, you begin to offer love outwardly, not as an obligation, not out of emptiness, but from a place of fullness. You give not to receive, but because you have something to give. You support others not while draining yourself, but while remaining rooted in your own peace. Your relationships become healthier, your words more thoughtful, your actions more aligned. Everything begins to reflect the quiet strength of someone who has learned to care for themselves deeply and honestly. This is why loving yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. It is the starting point from which clarity, compassion, and courage arise. The world does not need more people who ignore themselves for the sake of appearing strong. It needs people who are strong because they have learned to be gentle within. People who can stand tall, not because they seek recognition, but because they have built a foundation that cannot be shaken. And that foundation is love, quiet, consistent, and true.